That is basically simple. It's not a parliamentary type of debate. We are starting off with, we'll start off with, I'll invite you all to speak for 1 minute, introduce yourself and present your viewpoint for 1 minute. And in this 1 minute, no one can object to you. It's just you present your viewpoint, introduce yourself to the audience. And after that, it's a free flow of conversation. You are allowed to object, uh, don't abuse each other, and just keep it civil, like the debate should be. Welcome to Argumentative Indians, a platform for honest debates. My name is Mayank Kalra, and I'll be moderating today's debate. Today, we have quite an interesting lineup of speakers from different facets of Indian startup ecosystem. Now, coming to the topic, I'll explain this topic to the audience. This year alone, 50 Indian startups are expected to be become unicorn. We apparently have India apparently is the third largest, has the third largest, become the third largest ecosystem for startups. But there's another side to the story. We still rank below 47 countries in the Global Innovation Index. So my opening question to you all is, do Indian startups genuinely lack the ability to innovate, or is this view outdated? So kickstarting today's debate, I'll invite all the speakers to present the case in under 1 minute. And let's start with Neha.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Neha Sharma. I'm co-founder of Vigita Private Limited. There we manufacture lithium batteries for electric vehicles. And we also have come up with an electric bicycle that is a eco-friendly and hassle-free companion to commute in cities traffic. So I'm also president of Delhi Manufacturing Council, WICCI, that is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So here we are talking about, do startups lack innovative and unique business model? And I stand for the motion. So before going into the same, let us understand what is innovative and unique business model. So there's this term called innovation, then there's this term called invention. So when we talk about invention, it is the creation of a product, process, or service for the first time. It is unique. And innovation is something which is a practical implementation of invention to create a meaningful impact or value in the society. It is a significant improvement in the existing product, or we are talking about a process or a service. Innovation certainly flows from invention. So referring to Indian startups lacking inventive business models, yes, they do lack inventive business models. In India, we are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after US and China. Still, we rank at 23rd position in accordance with the country's global ranking of startup ecosystem 2020. That is given by Startup Blink, that is a global innovation mapping and research company. In India, at present, our startup ecosystem stands at a development phase of being in an imitative business model, that is duplicating business models. We can say that there's this Ola for Uber, Oyo Rooms for Airbnb, Flipkart for Amazon, and Paytm for Alipay. We copy successful business models of West. Like I can say Jamshedji Tata copied steel business from USA, textile mills of Bombay copied from UK, Dhirubhai Ambani copied oil companies of USA, TCS Infosys are copies of consulting business of West. Duplicacy, we are talking about duplicacy. It's not bad. It's a phase in the evolution development of India's startup ecosystem. USA did it, definitely. Japan did it, China did it, South Korea did it. And now Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and India, we are doing right now. So if we are talking about this, startup ecosystem goes through different development phases, accelerating their growth from being an imitative business model, then growing to an innovative business model, then to an inventive business model. If we talk about our ecosystem, startup ecosystem, it consists of several elements, from support organization, big companies, our R&D institutions, our universities, to funding organization. And then they interact with each other as a system to accelerate the growth of entire ecosystem. Our government certainly needs to prioritize the gaps in the elements of our ecosystem, be it in our R&D organizations, be in our universities, be it in our education system or companies, and then call out action plans that maximizes impact on the right issues at the right time.
Neha, I'm gonna pause you. I'm going to pause you. I'm really sorry. As I said it earlier, it was going to be a 1 minute introduction. So,
Okay, okay,
Mr. Nath,
sure.
let's move to you.
Okay, thanks, Mayank. So, just to give you a little background, I used to be an engineer from IIT Delhi once upon a time, like I think your colleague.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I spent about 20 years in the IT industry. I spent about 19 years as a professor at MDI, and for the last 8 years, which is the last 8 years of my stay in MDI, I have been an angel investor come mentor to a lot of startups in India, lots and lots of startups. And I've also written a book on the subject. Now, when you look at the whole issue of innovation, I would say there are multiple levels within innovation. So, first of all, are you creating something which is absolutely unique within this world? Are you creating a concept which doesn't exist anywhere? That is one level. I accept that. Level two is you may pick up something which has been done elsewhere, but you apply it to an environment like India, which is dramatically different, absolutely different. To me, that is huge innovation. That's huge innovation. Number three, not only the environment, can you implement it differently? Because there are many things which cannot be implemented in India, and you have to make major significant changes. So, if the question is, are you innovative enough for? I mean, are you able to launch, let's say, a completely innovative business model in the US? That is one question. I think that's not the question. The question is, can you do something which is innovative, which benefits our country? To my mind, there's a huge number of such things. And I have several stories about my own startups, which I have been mentoring. And given time, I can share those stories. But I suspect Mayank is going to stop me now. So I'll share those stories when I get the time.
Definitely. Sunny, what's your view on this?
So good evening, everyone. My name is Sani, and I'm the founder and director at Star. So we are basically a space education and research-based startup that aspires to make space for everyone. So basically, we provide project-based learning and hands-on experience to students who aspire to develop, like design, build, and launch their own rockets, satellites, and rovers. Now, I don't have much experience as Dhruv sir, but I've been in this ecosystem since many years now, and I've been to different cities for conducting workshops and for attending the events there. One thing I've seen is that we have got innovation in the in the products at some point, but the point where we lack in having the innovation is designing the business model around it. So if you let's take the sector in which I am right now. So it's if you talk about aerospace, most of the companies are focusing in developing tech to send something to space. But then we have got a very major issue in our country that a lot of kids want to be space pioneers, but we don't have startups around them, right? We don't have startups who solve this issue. So first thing is this. The second problem with us is if the best startup that we have is not growing globally and putting the mark there on the global level and representing the country. So we are solving problems for India, but that's one case. That's good. But then we have to see, Earth as the whole market, and that is what many startups are ignoring, and that is why I feel that we lack in having business models which can be scaled up exponentially, like in different countries. That's my point of view.
Prithvi?
Hi everyone, my name is Prithvi, and currently I run a YouTube channel called Backstage with Millennials, where we basically do stories about startup ecosystem in India. We have been live for almost 3 years now, and close to 300 videos. We have interviewed more than 150 entrepreneurs, and we have close to 150,000 subscribers as of today. And talking about English coverage of Indian startup ecosystem, we are right there at number one as of today. And talking about my experience, I started fairly young in my life. And in 2014, as an 18-year-old, I was awarded Youngest Indian CEO by Times Internet. And apart from that, I've been involved with the student community, basically, because I think the young the young generation of India basically has the potential to change the world. So I've spoken to a lot of colleges and school students. I have worked with the governments of Haryana, Punjab, and Rajasthan. In 2016, I started a community called Jaipur Startups, where the whole startup ecosystem in India was just booming. So yeah, I'll try to limit my introduction to that and maybe just get to my motion, which is against. And I really feel that Indian startup ecosystems, just like Dhruv sir mentioned, because there are I think the first co-panelists and mentioned that Jamshedji Tata kind of copied the steel business from the UK, or Dhirubhai Ambani copied the oil business from Saudi, or whichever country it was. So I just want to kind of want to ask, like, if Reliance wouldn't have done that business here, wasn't there any other company who would have done that, or was it only because, just like Dhruv sir mentioned, there are actually a lot of layers about it. I'll just give like one example for now. I'll try to limit it. When Amazon came to India, and everyone said that Amazon has like unlimited amount of cash. Flipkart will never be able to compete with that. Flipkart today has more market share than Amazon. Amazon still can pump in like $50 billion, even more than that in India, but still Flipkart, because the kind of implementation that Flipkart did in India, COD, was something that was never heard of. Flipkart realized that, okay, if you have to sell to the Indian audience, if you have to sell to the Indian customers, you cannot just ask them to punch in their debit or credit card details online, because no one will believe on that. Flipkart took the chance, and that was actually a very, very huge chance, because again, you are trying COD in a country like India. You never know, where that might go. But it worked out for Flipkart, and that must have been a very, very big decision for them to take. And today we talk about Ola. Ola has more market share than Uber. Flipkart. I mean, these are two of the India's biggest companies. And why Indian startups lack innovation? Mayank, just give me 30 more seconds. Is because before
Sure.
2015-16, the governments were not talking about startups, right? We actually started hearing the word startup for the first time. Like governments, politicians, and bureaucrats started talking about startups for the first time when the Startup India policy came in January of 2016. Before that, there was no government which were actually talking about VCs, and there was no government fund. But in the US, there were like in 1930s, there were VCDs. In 1940s, there were like VC investments and angel investment. We were already, so it's not that Indians are not talented. It's not that there are no Indian startup ecosystem. It's because the governments were not giving us that sort of that sort of environment for entrepreneurs to actually build, grow, and basically build for the world. And that's why we say that 50% of engineers in the US are Indians, 40% of doctors in the US are Indians. These many people in NASA are Indians. Like, these are the people, if they were given a chance. And again, let's not blame that onto the startup entrepreneurs. Let's blame that to the on the government. And these two are very, very different things. So because the governments were incompetent, because the politicians were incompetent, let's not blame the startup entrepreneurs, right?
Definitely.
And I hope that discussion is going to be in that direction.
By
Definitely.
the way, just a quick comment. That's a very innovative way of getting 4 minutes. I never thought of it.
Arjun,
Thank you very much, sir.
So, hi, my name is Arjun. I'm the tech guy. I'm the tech side of every company. I run a very generic software firm. We help small businesses grow using software. And also, I would like to emphasize I use the word business and not a startup. And I've been, working with technology. I self-taught myself to code, to program when I was like 14. And ever since, I've been approached by multiple startups to work on the tech side of the startup, to build the product or app which they're working on. And currently I'm involved with a couple of startups providing the whole tech side, and I've seen my fair share of startup ideas and people trying to start up a new thing. But that's where my perspective and my opinions come from. I've also been in one of the top 20 runner-ups in Smart India Hackathon back in 2016 or 17. So I'll be speaking for the motion. From what I have seen, India lacks a huge, the innovation point when it comes to startups. And another thing I would like to mention is, I believe there's a difference between a startup and a business, and a small business or a medium-sized business. And this probably goes a little against what Neha said, who's speaking for as well. But Ambani's and Tata's, that's our business. And don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a business, starting something which has already been done, but startups create value. They provide value. They're trying to solve a problem which exists, and that's the problem with India, where I think that since how the media portrays and how the movies and everything, these guys show it's cool. Everybody wants to have a CEO or founder tag under their name, and the whole reason to start up something is wrong. It's not to solve a problem, it's to make money, which never works out from what I have seen. In case you're not creating value, you're not providing some actual value to the society, you're not helping solving some problems. That as you guys might notice, like multiple startups, almost all of them are catered towards urban India, where I see there's a huge market where you can use these abilities and this innovation and unique business models to help rural India and help the country, in amazing ways which cannot even be thought of. But still, people, the startup culture in India, every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to, in colleges, they want to start a company which is providing no value, which has nothing innovative to do. And it's I think it's a buzzword now, startup and entrepreneurship, and it's being done by a lot of people to make money or just to be cool, which I think is very strongly against the what it stands for. And building a real startup takes a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. There's so high chances of failing. They're pretty much every startup which is successful, I don't know, there's like thousands, even 10,000s which failed, which nobody talks about. And I think it will be better for the whole startup ecosystem in India if people talked about it, showed that side, so that only people who are serious about it, who want to really do something, create some value, would go into it, which would obviously, the facts and numbers were mentioned in the introduction of the debate. The percentage of startups which are lacking innovation and business models in India, it would significantly bring that number down, and we would be better off.
Wait, so your viewpoint is that most of the entrepreneurs in India are more of the entrepreneurs. They see something, they see the global giants, they see Elon Musk, or they get attracted with it, they get attracted with the money, the lifestyle, and everything. So your viewpoint is that's what's lacking innovation in India. So
Yes.
so
Yeah, please.
Mr. Nath, what would be your view on this?
Okay.
This new age of entrepreneurs, are they the real reason for the lack of innovation?
Okay. So let me give you an example. I'll give you a story, right? This is a story about two of my students, and I am assuming nobody will interrupt me because this is not an Arnab Goswami channel. I'm assuming nobody.
You're allowed to raise your hand, go to object.
Okay, fine. That's okay. Thank you. Yeah. So there are two of my students. If you look at the edtech sector, if you look at education, right, there are the haves and there are the have-nots. And if you look at, there is India, there is Bharat, and Bharat is very clearly a have-not, right? These guys said, if you look at the poorer sections of society, for example, the children studying in government schools in villages, do they have access to decent education? The answer is no, for multiple reasons, right? Some of them have got computers through CSR, but they are not functional. I've seen them in many cases. Many of them do not have enough teachers, right? And even the teachers who are there are basically there from the same village and therefore are not able to teach. These guys were very, very passionate. They were not looking at copying the US. They were not looking at, how do I create a unicorn? They were very, very passionate about taking education to the last, this category of people and converting that into a business. So I think I think Sunny mentioned there's no business model. I'll give you the business model here. So what they started doing was they realized there are two fundamental problems. Number one, there is almost no internet in these village schools. And number two, there is almost no electricity for most hours in the day. What they did was they said, okay, we will have a low cost tablet. And on that tablet, we'll put a lot of content. And that content, by the way, is in vernacular. It's not in English, right? And we will therefore create something that we call a tab lab, a tablet based lab. So 20 tablets in a room where the children can come and they can play around with physics and chemistry and maths and so on. And I've seen them. And it's been great because these guys have actually created projects around the projects that have been mentioned in the tablets. So that's number one. Number two, and all this content, by the way, is downloaded. So therefore, you taken care of the fact that the internet may not be available. So it's preloaded in the tablets. Number two is the problem of electricity, right? What these guys have done is a very innovative solution. They have a cupboard. After the class is over, just shove your tablet into that, the slots that are available. Whenever you get electricity during the night or day, all you need is 1.5 hours. During that time, these guys will get charged. And therefore, by the next day, it will work. Of course, if you don't have electricity at all, then they won't get charged, right? So this is their technology, and I think it's very innovative. Now, look at the innovative business model. This is funded essentially by CSR funding. So they go to companies, the big companies, Asian Paints, ITC, and so on, and they are willing to fund, let's say, 10 tab labs, 20 tab labs, and so on. Now, CSR is not a business. CSR cannot be the basis for a business. What they've done is they said, okay, now these young kids in school have learned and they're very excited. They're actually learning. Can we make the same content available on the smartphone of their parents when they go home? That we will charge for, but we'll charge only a small amount. Okay, that is the business model. So this is the starting point where the need for this kind of content is created, and it is funded through CSR. And ultimately, it is the parents who will buy this content and use it on the smartphone for the kids, right? It's doing brilliantly. In fact, about 3 years back, I haven't spoken to them for the last couple of years. About 3 years back, they had about 100 schools. My guess is they would have covered about 300 to 400 schools. They don't need money, they're profitable. There's no problem, right? Now, I cannot imagine a thing like this being done in the US or anywhere else. And it is not driven by the fact that these guys want to become a unicorn. They are passionate about taking education to that category of students.
All right, Mr. Nath. Again, with all due respect, I think the whole statement of "do Indian startups lack innovation" is more of a generalized statement, right? When I'm arguing for it, I'm not saying that there's every startup or every other startup in India is lacking innovation. It's just the majority of them, the majority of the whole startup culture and the whole ecosystem, like lack innovation. I can't stress enough on how bad the problem is, because like you mentioned was a wonderful example, and what these guys are doing is amazing, because you can tell that they actually want to make a difference, and they're not looking for financial gains. But even let's start with the we're talking about copying the West, and I don't think it's a competition. I think of our society as a whole, and anything which helps human race move forward is a go for me. But even within India, if talking about Paytm, the fintech sector, Paytm's really huge now. And I remember when it started, when it was in its initial phases, there's like 7 other platforms doing the same thing, which emerged after Paytm, MobiQuick or Oxygen wallets and stuff. And all of them essentially did the same thing, did the same whatever Paytm was up to. Paytm did it better, in my opinion. But my point being, it would be better if people focus their energy towards solving a problem, like the example you discussed, rather than building a startup. Like the problem is you buy a car to go from point A to point B. You don't go from point A to point B just because you have a car, right? And that's where I'm coming from, that the reason to start a startup is not just because you want to do a startup. The reason should be that you got a problem to solve, and the problem's significant enough, the market's huge enough, and it's actually going to make a difference. And of course, the financial part comes along with it, because you need money to sustain, need money to grow, and you need money to
So
keep
Arjun,
running.
I'm gonna stop you there. So your point was again similar to your last point, that most of the Indian entrepreneurs, the new breed of entrepreneurs, are the entrepreneurs. They don't see a problem. They just want to start their own startup. If that's the
At the
case,
time being, most, yes.
most of
Like,
them. If
yeah.
that's the case, let's say uh, in India we have some really innovative startups coming up. Like we have I don't know about whatever Byju's, or in aerospace Sunny is there, and Skyroot is doing very well, and many other startups in agriculture or aerospace or in different biotech and everything. So there's other side too. So Prithvi, you had a point about this,
Okay, so yeah, first thing I really wanted to, the Warnerpreneurs, was the word that basically came in. So
Exactly.
in a country of 1.4 billion people, you cannot really control who is going to start or who wants to start up, right? People have all sorts of reasons to start up. It might be okay, they get motivated by people like Elon Musk, or they get motivated by the kind of lifestyle that either of Binny Bansal or these guys have, or Vijay Shekhar Sharma has. So basically, there are different reasons for people to start up, and that's what I said. So that's one point, that you can, in a country like India, you cannot always control who wants to start up and who doesn't want to, and that's obviously a reason why 95% of those startups cannot even sustain for a year, right? That's right there. So let's put that to then. Talking about now the innovation, talking about basically the business model, taking about the issues, that what issues are these startups solving. Is it a proper business, or is it like the kind of innovation? I'll just try to maybe give one example, and then I'll let my co-panelists decide whether it was an innovation, whether it was some sort of. So just with innovation, there are a lot more different factors which are there for a startup to succeed. There is a startup called Chingari, which is the startup after TikTok was banned. Now, Chingari was listed on Google Play Store in 2017, much before TikTok came to India. Just because Chingari, the same platform, it has basically almost like it obviously wasn't as posh as TikTok at that point of time. Today, they have raised more than $15 million. So now they are right there. They basically are getting into the league of the global companies, because Chingari did not have that sort of potential, because it did not have that sort of capital, it could not get traction like TikTok. Now, would you say TikTok was more innovative than Chingari just because it had more capital, just because it was backed by the Chinese investment firms, just because they could spend $1 billion in less than a year? And even after that, like once TikTok was banned on 25th or 26th of June 2020, there's a company called ShareChat, which just became a unicorn last week. They started an app called Josh, and Josh was coded in less than 24 hours. So just because they saw a market, just because they saw there was a void right after TikTok was banned, within a 24 hours they had an app which was as posh, which was as feature loaded as TikTok. Again, TikTok had like years of development behind them. TikTok had years of experience behind them. Would you call that innovation or not? Now, and there's a third point which you kind of brought money a couple of times. So money, when we are talking about startups, it's always a byproduct. Like if you are actually working on a startup which is sustainable, if you're talking about a business model which is there, which can be worked out, money will always come in. Like you cannot just say that, okay, I'm making this innovation, so money will never come, right? If there is innovation, if there is a proper market, if you are just marketing it properly, money will. Just giving the information, just giving the example of Chingari, because it was there for 3 years on less than 5,000 downloads. The day TikTok was banned, they basically just shot, and within I think a week they finalized the first round of $1.5 million from Indian Angel Network, and there were different people. And just now they have signed up Salman Khan as the brand ambassador, and they just closed a $13 million round last week. So yeah, those are my points. I'll let Dhruv sir, he has some point maybe.
Yeah, Mr. Nath, continue.
Yeah. So first of all, the nation wants to know. Okay. So I just want to react to what Arjun says, and I agree with him to some extent. You will always have, I mean, in a country of 130 crore people, sorry, maybe 135 now. In a country of 135 crore people, you will always have some guys who are copycats, sure. But my question is, are there enough people who are innovative? And my point is yes. So I'll share one more interesting story, which again goes back to the business model. Right? In fact, maybe at the end, if I have time, I will also share a story about one startup which is headquartered in India, but is actually created an innovative solution for the US. And they don't seem to have a competitor. Okay, so I'll come to that later. Right now, I'm talking about India. There is an interesting company which I have invested in, by the way. It's called Phone Per Loan. Phone Per Loan is the brand, right? Now, the problem is, if you look at people who take loans, they are normally the guys who have a CIBIL score, right? And you have an adequate CIBIL score, you will be able to get a loan. Normally, the guys who take loans are the guys who are people like us, right? But who are the guys who really want the loan? It is the guys down the line, people who are maybe security guards, drivers, peons, office boys, etc., etc. Because घर की छत गिर गई है. I need to mend it, and therefore I'm desperate. I don't have money. I need a 25,000 rupee ka loan. They will not get it. Why will they not get it? They don't have a appropriate CIBIL score, right? What this guy did was he partnered with NBFCs. He said, okay, I will be the front end. I will use the SMSs which these guys get, and I'm only looking at employees. I'm not looking at people in business. I will look at the SMSs they get, which talk about A, the income, and B, the expenditure, and then figure out whether they are credit worthy or not. Right? And he implemented this, and it was actually growing dramatically. Right? To me, that is huge innovation. Now look at what happened. COVID hit us, right? 25th of March last year, and all of us know what the hell happened. Suddenly, all the NBFCs went defunct. They didn't have money to lend, right? So his business model sank. What he realized was these same characters, the security guard, the driver, the nurse, the attendant, etc., etc. Everybody is very, very desperate for. Everybody is very concerned about health, because COVID has suddenly raised the focus on health. The problem is these guys want to go into a good hospital for whatever treatment they want, but they can't afford it. So health insurance has become a priority. Now the problem is these guys, the health insurance they want, but they cannot afford it because the premium is too high. So what this guy did was he spoke to a couple of insurance companies. He says, boss, can you give them insurance on an EMI basis? They said yes. And in fact, the interesting thing was a fairly significant amount of health insurance they got by paying an EMI of not more than 200 and 250 rupees. Okay. Now, suddenly that thing also started booming. Currently, it's on hold because of, again, COVID related issues. But look at the way this guy has been pivoting and trying to create completely unique business models. So, I think the moment COVID disappear, I think he'll be in business again. So I would agree with Arjun. There will be a lot of people who say, boss, mere ko bhi unicorn banna hai. And there will be lots of these college students who, they dream of becoming a Baiju Ravindran or, one of these guys. They will fall by the wayside. But there are enough guys who are looking at very, very innovative solutions to India's problems.
Again, I wanted to add a little bit to, well, Prithvi just made a case for me. So I don't know what happened there. But the thing is, with the startup you mentioned about TikTok and Chingari, I don't know if you know that, but TikTok ended up acquiring Musically, and Musically was founded in 2014. So don't worry about that. Mr. Nath, what you just mentioned, that's amazing. And I think pivoting is really important when it comes to startups. And a lot of people, they get, when they're in the initial phases, they get delusional with their idea, and they get too attached to it. They get too attached to the whole idea of them and whatever their mind is imagining. And I think the pivoting part, and as you go, you got to adapt and improvise. And I think that's like a really important part which you brought up. I 100% agree with that one.
So, Mr. Nath, you mentioned Byju's. My question to you is, you being an angel investor in the startup community, there also talks about, when we particularly talk about innovation, these guys, when the startup entrepreneurs, they talk about when they approach the investors for actually funding them. So the investors are actually looking for something tried and tested business models. So they kind of don't. So that leads to the entrepreneurs to build businesses around the business model which are already tried and tested. So what's your view on this?
No, so I don't agree with that. Basically, so incidentally, let me share with you. This is the book which I have written, Funding Your Startup. I didn't want to promote this on this channel, but I will share with you something which is out of this book. What I have tried to put down here is investors look at what I call a persistent model. Okay, and that's the word persistent. And each letter of this word persistent stands for something. P stands for, are you solving a problem, which is what Arjun rightly mentioned, right? E stands for earnings model, will somebody be paying for you? R is risk. S is size of the market, right? The second S is scalability. One of the letters there, I, stands for innovation. Now, the reason why this is important is that, what we look for as investors is not necessarily something which is a tried and tested business model. Because frankly, most of us have a lot of gray hair. In my case, I lost all my gray hair, but let's keep that aside. So most of us have a fair amount of experience, and we can sense that, look, this is something which is likely to do well. There's no guarantee, but it's likely to do well, right? So we try and look for a business model or a concept which is likely to become successful. It doesn't necessarily have to be something which is unique. What is important is there has to be an entry barrier, which means your competitor has to find it tough to copy you. And innovation is one of the possible entry barriers, particularly if you have a couple of patents. So again, I'll share with you an example of something which we are very, very excited about. When this lady Ivanka Trump, the earlier president's Trump's daughter, came to India, Prime Minister Modi had demonstrated to her one very interesting robo called Mitra, right? I don't know if you guys saw those photographs, right?
Mitra, Balaji Viswanathan.
Mitra,
Yeah.
Balaji, exactly, Balaji. ठीक है ना? So Mitra जो है, frankly, for a robot to look like a human, it's quite silly. It's meant only for exhibitions, right? But you have a lot of robots which don't look like humans, but do things which are useful. What this guy is now focusing on is very interesting. He's not trying to create humanoid robots. It doesn't matter whether the guy can blink his eyelids or not. That's irrelevant, right? What he's doing is, and this again goes back to what Arjun mentioned, he is creating something for the US market, but Bangalore based. Okay. What is he doing? He's created a robot, and this robot, he is training it and he's, modifying it to uh, to an application which is in geriatric wards in hospitals in the US. Geriatric wards means what? Old age, correct? Now, what are the problems in the US in geriatric ward? Let's understand. So the problem is, firstly, manpower there is very expensive. So is womanpower, right? So you may have a huge ward of lots of old people, somebody with, heart trouble, somebody with arthritis, somebody with Alzheimer's disease, unfortunately, the hand shaking up and down. And there are maybe two nurses in one corner, and the guy is in trouble, but the nurses don't know he's in trouble, right? There is a robo which will keep floating around all over the place, all over the ward, and checking to see things like, is the guy, has he fallen down? Is the guy in bed? Is he waving his hand, which means maybe he's trying to attract the attention of the nurse? Is the guy looking as though he's in pain, right? So through machine learning, the robo is trained to recognize very simple symptoms. Obviously, they can't replace a nurse or a doctor, but very, very simple systems. Also, what the robo will do is it will go around, it is programmed to the schedule of medication that each patient is supposed to get is entered into the robo. So the robo floats around and it has a voice also. Sir, your medicine for 3 p.m. is here. It has a tray. Please take this medicine. What is the robo doing? It is replacing nurses. It is replacing ward boys for low-level tasks, not high-level tasks. It can't, right? The cost of a ward boy, from what I understand, from what Balaji told me, the founder, he says a ward boy typically will cost $3,000 to $3,500 a month. My robo will cost $700 a month. Okay. And if there is some instructions to be given, there is a call center at the back which is sitting in Bangalore, where there are people who are semi-nurses who are trained to give those instructions verbally. So the lowest level of care for geriatrics is taken care of by this guy. There is a flood of interest. There doesn't seem to be any competition from whatever Balaji told me. I mean, this is not innovation for implementing in India. This is innovation for the US. Right?
But Mr. Nath, they created this innovation and they apparently measured out all the financial that the human element of the ward boy is going to cause this and their robo is going to cause this.
Absolutely.
But can they actually turn that innovation into a proper business model?
It's a business.
A sustainable business model.
Yeah, it is.
That's where most startups lack. Even if they have the innovation, they fail the business model element of it.
No, so their point is they will not sell the robo. This is a robo as a service, just as you have software as a service and
Understand.
platform as a service. It's a robo as a service, which includes the call center backend, $700 per robo average, roughly, right?
Arjun,
That's a very viable business. No problem.
Yeah. So just like you mentioned, right? You solved the problem there, and as Mayank said, the very contrast to it, and the name has came up like 5 6 times now, is Byju's. Is that a great business? Amazing. They made shit like a lot of money. That's cool. But are they innovating, like providing educational content? Wasn't that everything is available for free on the internet anyway? If you want to capitalize on the fact of parents of who have the FOMO, the fear of missing out of education and technology, it's a great business. Don't get me wrong, and I totally am up for it. But the innovation part, not so much. Pretty much everything they offer on their tablets and their educational platform is available online for free anyway.
Yeah.
They
So
need
I
better
would agree.
format.
So by the way,
hold on, Mr. Nath, hold on. Sunny has a point to make.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so thank you so much. So first of all, I was really happy when I got to know about the story that was said by Ms. Dhruv sir about the education-based startup.
Yeah.
Now coming to the point, like Arjun mentioned that Byju's is doing something which is into education, which you can learn something from internet, and you can also watch videos on YouTube and other sources. I've seen few startups in foreign countries where they are actually providing hands-on experience on various stuffs to students and teaching physics. It's not like learning things by just sitting in a classroom. The thing is that is happening in India, but not at the scale at which it should happen. First thing, and India is a very big market for that. First, second, many startups in India are innovating, keeping the next 3 years or 5 years of operation in mind. But if you see, there are companies, in the world who are actually focusing on deep tech, which is going to be and the research and development, which is going to be there after 10 years. So talking about, one of the that's not a startup, but that's company name IBM. Okay, they are building quantum computers and they have kept their cloud
It was a
platform.
startup 80 years ago.
Yes, yes. But they have kept their IBM quantum computing platform open. But then came a company named D-Wave. It's a startup now, and now they are providing the cloud-based quantum computing platform to students who can actually upload their algorithms and test them. Now these startups have got no commercials for for first 10 years of the operations, but they have got something which is going to be there in future. So if you are building an innovation which is just going to focus on 5 years, but on the other hand you have got startups who have got a bigger plan, there are chances that your innovation might get vanished by them.
Neha, what's your viewpoint?
Yeah, I was saying our co-panelist, Mr. Prithvi, just said that I talked about Jamshedji Tata ji and Dhirubhai Ambani, they copied. So, and they are making a major market share in the, they are having a major market share. Definitely, the Flipkart is also having a major market share. But I definitely say that if I talk about in context of Indian startups lacking innovative and unique business models, it's a phase in the development or evolution of the whole ecosystem. Definitely, if they like copied it and they are making a major market share, it's very good, it's nice. That's how we grow, that's how our whole ecosystem grow. Dhruv sir is talking on an individual level, on a group level, on an organizational level, and on a societal level. He is giving examples. With due respect, if we are talking on a global context, we are majorly, if we visualize our whole ecosystem, we are just copying. We are not innovative enough. In the webinar also, Mr. Mayank gave us in the description, he gave us the data of IEPM Institute that 77% of VCs think that Indian startups lack innovation and unique business model. That's how surveys are conducted. If we are conducting surveys on a global level, we lack innovation and we lack startup ecosystem that has yet developed from an imitative business model to an innovative or an inventive business model. Definitely, Mr. Prithvi also said like we are lacking in somewhere in several elements of the ecosystem, be it be in R&D organizations, be it be in the institution, be it be from a government side. Definitely, that is what needs to be done to grow our whole ecosystem, that our government needs to prioritize the gaps and we need to take the actions in the right time and through the right process. to move towards the innovation and move towards to uplift our the phases or development of our entire ecosystem. So that's what I have to say.
Prithvi, you had a point.
Yes. So I actually want to get started right now because it's very fresh what Neha said. And the IBM survey, or all the surveys that we are talking about, one, just like I think I mentioned in the beginning as well, that we basically start comparing Indian startup ecosystem with that of US or China, right? US, and it's in my opinion, it's really not fair to start basically compare Indian startup ecosystem to that of the US, when US basically had VC deals, like just like I said, happening in 1930s, or basically banks just giving these loans, and Indian government started talking about startups for the first time in 2016. So that way, I think, I don't know how many of you really follow news, but last week alone, Indian startup ecosystem had 6 new unicorns. So just in 1 week, like in 5 working days. So that is, I'm pretty sure, like if you do not compare the first 5 years of Indian startup ecosystem to the first 50 years of US startup ecosystem. So let's only talk about Indian startups, right? And then there was another thing which came with the Arjun mentioned about Byju's, like the
I would like to add, maybe we may be having the unicorns in the world, but we are still not among the fastest growing ecosystems, startup ecosystems in the world. If I talk about ecosystem develops through 4 phases generally: at a local level, at a regional level, then it goes through a global level, and at a very high level, it is on a that is integration level. If we look at all the 4 levels and we look at the recent studies, we are nowhere among the fastest growing ecosystems of the world. We should be talking about our startups, our innovative business models in terms of global level. If we are talking about the ecosystems on a global level, they are not emerging as the fastest growing startups. Fastest growing growth, talking about the ecosystem as a whole.
Arjun has a point.
So again, while Prithvi was making his points, I think it's very important to mention that we've been talking about startups since the whole debate started, but there's 2 more very key elements to the whole ecosystem, which is the investors and VCs, and then the users, right? And I remember I started, when my journey began, I was in my first year in college, and I made an app, right? And I went to IIM Indore. It was a startup. They had an event where we had a couple of investors, and I presented the app there. It was shortlisted, and from the whole experience, what I've seen is a great, like a good investor would be optimistic and think about things where the whole idea can work and how it can work out. Whereas like a lot of VCs and investors in India, they try to poke holes whenever you're pitching. Their whole objective during the pitch and after is to find out what's gonna go wrong. And again, there's thousands of things which can go wrong, and there's nothing wrong with it. But sometimes it even seems like they're trying to come off as that they're how intelligent they are, or how they can see things through. Whereas I believe a great investor thinks how the thing could work and how it can it can turn into something better, and he's optimistic about it rather than badgering the person with. And again, with the users, the Indian user market is very different when we compare it to West. India, I think, is a price-driven market. There's a lot of people who are not able to sustain and innovate just because the whole mentality is based around the pricing and how they can get the same services for cheaper, and innovation and quality loses its value in the process, and which makes an additional challenge for Indian startups to sustain and have a kind of business model which can slowly get the revenue which is required to keep the business running and profitable.
Arjun, Prithvi, I'll come back to you a second. Arjun, you mentioned about the investors.
Mayank, before actually it goes, because my last point was cut short, I just want to add it because
Yeah. Just 1 second. I have a
then
point
it
for Mr.
won't make sense.
Hello. Yeah, I have a point for Mr. Nath in regarding to what Arjun said. Being an investor, Mr. Nath, what do you think about what Arjun said? The relationship between an investor and an entrepreneur who's pitching his startup to the investor.
So Arjun is a young friend. I cannot fully disagree with him. So my point is very simple. First of all, wherever you are, human nature is human nature. I agree with you. There are some guys in the audience who want to prove that they know a hell of a lot more than the founder. But that is not true of Indian. That's true of anybody. It's true of Chinese. It's true of Arabs. It's true of anybody, right? So it's across the board.
Fair enough.
I think what you're saying, the question you're raising, the fact that people try and poke holes, that is agreed to. But I think that is very, very necessary because very clearly we realize that as investors that there will be risks. There is a large amount of risk that the startup that this guy wants the money for will not work. We agree with that. Has the founder considered these risks? Is he aware of these risks? Does he have a backup plan in case these risks actually turn out to be true? Right? Does he know enough about the business? One reason why we keep asking questions, and we do ask questions, I agree with you, is that we want to know, does the guy understand the business? Has he made the right assumptions or not? Right? Ultimately, it may turn out to be wrong, which is fine. Right? But the guy must know what he's talking about. So to that extent, we do ask questions. And I think that's fair. I think that's right. Yeah? You're putting in your hard-earned money. I think that's true everywhere. But what Arjun raised about, some people trying to prove that they were smarter, that's unfortunate. But my guess, I don't think that's an Indian trait. You probably will not find it in monkeys, but you'll definitely find it in many humans.
Mr. Nath, we get your point. We get your point. Hope Arjun agrees or disagrees with your point. But Prithvi, I'll let you finish on this one, and
Okay.
then we can conclude in under 1 minute. No one can object, and everyone can conclude with their viewpoints. Prithvi?
Thank you, Mike. So I think it was the point that I'm speaking against was said more than 10 minutes ago. So I don't know how fresh it is in everyone's mind. So Arjun basically spoke about Byju's, their business model, and he spoke about fear of missing out. Obviously, there have been a lot of news. There have been a lot of news about Whitehead Junior basically just kind of trying to pressurize parents or basically just parents getting into that sort of pressure that okay, they have to buy those products. Now, I mean, keeping that aside, because again, we are talking about innovation. We are really not talking about the sales. We are not talking about. Now, I was in Byju's office a couple of years ago, and these people at that time had more than 60 people just to work on the background music in their content. Those are the kind of minute details that they're looking at to make sure that the user experience really stands out when there is a student using their product, just to make sure the retention rate is more, just to make sure that the student, let's not talk about the parents, let's not talk about how they are really getting that money to buy that product. Let's talk about the product. So now, just to make sure that the experience, just on that background music, there are people just kind of jingling and every single time just to create that one perfect beat, so that will still remain in the background, but that'll be soothing. Now, in his next argument, Arjun spoke about that when there is this kind of money is involved, the innovation basically takes a back seat. You do not really talk about innovation when there is a lot of money involved, or when that there is a lot of money involved to actually make that sort of product. So that was basically kind of contradicting both of his points, because in cases of Byju's, when we are talking about innovation, we also talk about money. That okay, there is a product like this, and there is the fear of missing out and all of these things. So when there is innovation, there has to be money, right? And now that's a completely different factor. That what price point is Byju selling at? What is the how the sales team is working, which I know which is not really working very professionally. I do hear a lot of these. We actually did a video on Backstage with Millionaires about with Pradeep Punia, the guy who was the whistleblower for Whitehead Junior, about their business practices. But that's a completely different thing. We were only talking about innovation. So yeah, that was my point about it.
Yeah, Sunny, you had a point.
Yeah, but you talked about the quality of the audio in the background, right? That have nothing to do with the innovation. And innovation is something like having more people doesn't guarantee innovation. It can be done by a single person as well. It's about coming up with the idea.
No, Sunny, innovation can also be like how to just make sure that you actually increase the retention time of the kids. There are like 3-4 year old kids who are watching a content who cannot have attention span for more than 5 minutes. How Byju's is making sure that they actually attend the entire 30-minute class.
Okay.
That can also be innovation in someone's, like someone might consider that as innovation. Innovation is not only about coding and the product you're making. It can also be the content.
Yeah, understood.
Prithvi, again, I will have to respectfully disagree.
Arjun, I'm going to hold on a second. Just a request, please. As we are running short on time, if you could conclude this in a faster time frame. We are running short on time, so that everyone gets time to conclude.
Seconds.
Yeah,
yes.
Sure.
Prithvi, again, that's a great business ethic. Having, being detail oriented, making something amazing and making sure the quality is the best. But again, what do you think Byju did different, and where are they providing value? Where did they create value? What did they do which is going to benefit the whole nation or the kids? What was not available before?
Can I quickly respond to that, Mayank? So,
Yeah, sure.
Arjun, okay, with your accent, I don't know how much time you have really spent in India or basic. I don't know where you're based, so sorry for my lack of knowledge. But I come from a very rural part in Rajasthan, and in not only Rajasthan, like in entire, I've stayed half my life in Bangalore, so I have also traveled across South India. 60% of the government schools in India are not in a position that can be compared to a decent private school, or basically that can be said that they will provide you proper education, which can even push a student through his metric, through his 10th standard. Now a company like Byju's, can that be enabled? Can a company like Byju's work with the government of Rajasthan or work with the government of India to make sure that their product reaches to every single village? Just one tablet, just one device can literally power the entire village. Just make sure that they have the best kind of tutors, they have the best kind of teachers. Now a person, like we keep speaking about that there's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of students, there is this. Now, like one person sitting in Bangalore, or let's say sitting in any part of the world, can teach 1 billion kids in India, can teach like tens of millions of kids. So I'm sure like that.
Prithvi, really sorry to cut you off. We are running short on time. Let's conclude under 1 minute. Whatever viewpoints were throughout the debate, you can sum it all up in a minute. And let's start with Mr. Nath.
Okay. So for a start, I'll just react to the discussion that was just going on. I think there is a bit of a mix-up between innovation and value that you're providing to the market, to your customer, right? You may have a solution which is copied from the US, but if you're providing value to your customer, so what? It may not be innovative, that's okay. But Byju's is providing huge value to its customers. Now, it's a different issue. We may say that they could provide more value, but nobody says they're not providing value. So I think that's not the question. The question is innovation. I just have one comment with which I'll conclude, which is, even if you've copied from abroad, I agree there are many businesses in India which are many startups which are innovative. There are some which are not. There are many which are not. I accept that. But even if you've copied it, as long as you're providing value, as long as it's a great business, what is the problem? I have had people coming to me. I've been mentoring a lot of startups. So I remember one guy who came to me, sir, I have a brilliant solution for the real estate industry based on blockchain. So I said, okay, explain it to me. He explained it to me. I said, where does blockchain fit into this? Sir, that is the innovation. That's where I will get funding. I said, bhai, let's be very clear. You run a business. If it is a great business, sure, we'll put in money. Don't bring in blockchain. Don't bring in innovation for the sake of innovation. Innovation is required provided it is adding value, like Arjun rightly says, which is fine, right? So I think the debate is about innovation, not about adding value. I think every successful startup here adds value. Yes, some of them may not be innovative, but that's okay.
Annie?
So I agree with the point, and obviously I got a lot to know about the different innovations which are there going in the country through this particular discussion. And I obviously believe that innovation is there in the startups, but the problem is like it's not expanding to the global level, and the problem is in having an innovative business model to expand it to different countries. And yeah, this is a problem that we're facing, but as an entrepreneur, we'll definitely work on that and we'll solve it.
Prithvi?
Well, so I think most of it I've already said, but just like I keep on saying that there are millions of people, that there are like 1.3 billion people. So out of that, there is always a filtration. There will always be, startups which are highly innovative. There are always startups which are from India building for the world. There will also always be copycats, just like, we mentioned about Flipkart. But again, for even a copycat to survive in a market like India, where there are 22 official languages, there are people who do not even want to spend a rupee. They're the people who are just running behind cashback. The day an app stops giving cashback, that basically app stops getting any orders or getting any of that. So in a country like India, to crack onto the user mindset, it basically requires a lot more effort than just being a copycat. So if you are even getting that one order, even if you're getting that one customer in India, I'm sure that you are innovative and you're actually doing something good. You're doing something valuable.
Great. Neha?
So I believe we are using the term innovation in combination with a business model. That is something that is a company's plan for making money, and innovation is something we are adding value to something. So taking forward something that is adding value to something, but in turn is also a plan for making money. So if we talk about, there are a hell lot of products that are being imported from China. There are a hell lot of products that can be manufactured here in India. I'm from a manufacturing technology startup domain and field, and I believe there are a lot of products that are not even copied in India, that are being imported from China, Japan, Korea, and they are not even being copied. So there are a lot of companies that are copying. It's not bad. It is one of the phase to get evolved, to get developed. So we need to get through the phase of imitative business model, and we need to achieve at a global position. We need to achieve our whole ecosystem. We need to recognize our whole ecosystem as a innovative ecosystem, and then as an inventive ecosystem in stepping into the R&D domain. So we need to be among the leading edge business models of the world, where currently we do not stand.
Okay, great. Arjun?
Throughout the whole thing, I think I was speaking for and Mr. Nath was against, but I pretty much agreed with whatever he said. I wholeheartedly agree. I don't know how that happened. I still stand for the statement, and he stands still against the statement, but I agree whatever he said. Prithvi, however, I couldn't disagree more with. And when it comes to the comments about the accent, buddy, if you don't want to repeat yourself thrice when you're living here, you kind of have to adapt. No worries about that
No,
one.
I just wanted to know how much time you have spent in the rural India, because that's what
You know
was the
what?
example I was
I
going.
would love to chat more about
Yeah,
it.
let's have this
Let's talk
debate
later on
on this. I'll
after the
say
debate. Yeah, well,
connect
we'll
both of
connect.
you. I'll connect both of you.
To summarize, I think with the examples we were using and how Prithvi said that Byju's and the rural areas, I would rather see more startups like Mr. Nath's first example, where the two guys, they were having tablets without internet and how they tackled those problems, rather than Byju's. Byju's is doing nothing wrong. It's a free world. You can run whatever business you want to. You can earn with money, which are, as long as it's legal, whichever way you want to, and there's nothing wrong with it. But when it comes to innovation, which is the part of the whole statement here, I think I would rather go with, Mr. Nath's. I think he mentored those guys than something which is more, urban oriented. Just
No, all I want to say is, Arjun, why not both?
This debate is gonna go way longer, man. So the thing
I'll connect you both.
The thing is, Mr. Nath's example, that scenario, they did solve a problem, the accessibility, right? Those guys, the urban areas which you are reaching without the internet, without the charging problem, since they're getting limited electricity. Byju's is a great business model, but I don't know if you have looked at the pricing page on Byju's website, but you can't really expect the rural government school going kids to pay that kind of pricing for content, which is basically available for free
Right,
all over.
Arjun. That's why I mentioned if governments intervene, and I wasn't really talking about the pricing or anything else. I was only talking about the content. I was only talking about the quality of content, because I'm sure the startup that Mr. Nath mentioned will not be able to copy the kind of quality that Byju's has.
I strongly disagree. I don't think you need money to go for quality. I can actually send you a link to people who are uploading YouTube videos, which is free. They're just getting ad revenues, and I can assure you, buddy, their teaching methods, the knowledge and content they're providing would be 100% better than whatever Baiju has on their website. And I've used Baiju's myself. I'm not just speaking without facts. I have used RoboMate. I've used these couple of products because when I was in India, I don't know if you guys know, but I dropped out from computer sciences in my at the beginning of my third year in school. I went to Thapar University, and before that, the whole craze of being an engineer, going to IITs, and the whole splurge of coaching institutes and these tablets and content. Pretty much, my parents were they really wanted me to go through everything. So believe me, buddy, I've seen all those videos. I've been through it. The only thing, if you need to provide value, again, by just doing what they're doing.
Okay, let's do this thing.
Right.
Let the audience decide on this. We'll run a poll on our page. We'll run a poll on this group. Let the audience decide on this, that is Byju's really innovative, and they can have their views on this, and we'll share with it to you. And I'll connect both of you after this debate, definitely.
Yeah, we got to talk more.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I have one last comment, if Mayank, you'll let me.
Yeah, sure.
This is probably the first debate I've seen where Arnab Goswami was not allowed to speak.
That's how it should be. Na? My moderation is to control you all in a group that it doesn't go the Arnab Goswami way, and our users can actually learn something from the panelists we have invited.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayank. It was
for
great.
coming here and providing your views and sharing your knowledge and expertise with our users. Hope to host you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayank. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.